Hello, and welcome to the ShrubSMP Season 7, Episode 5. Today, we are back here at the Island of Purgatory, where my villager starter area was, and we're actually coming by just to stop and get some supplies. One of the things we want to do is just recycle as much as we can. I did take most of my valuables and then some things that I needed over at the Dark Castle exploration and the Trial Chambers outpost. But now that we're turning our attention to the main mission of getting our starter area next to spawn built, one of the things the starter area needs is an enchanting setup, and I just so happen to have one in here from when we were doing missions 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to go ahead and take it with us. Now, on top of taking this stuff with us, one of the other things that we're going to need to do as we get our starter area set up is to start to think about what it's going to look like, what the blocks that we're going to need, and any materials that we're going to have to go start gathering. Now, one of the things that we're going to need right away is we are going to need mud blocks. So as we saw around spawn, there's a lot of copper and terracotta, and there's some really cool use of the mud block variants, and I think that that's what we're going to use as some of the structural components to our starter area, some of the more foundational items. So for the beginning of today's episode, we're actually going to go out exploring into the ocean and kind of go around. I believe last time I was out, I didn't mark the coordinates, but somewhere nearby, there is a mangrove swamp where you can also find plenty of mud, and we'll at least get that collection going. And then for the second part of today's episode, we are going to continue to do redstone in this season, and I am going to build, right in that starter area, a mud generator, an automatic redstone mud generator, so that we can make our own right there on site. Alright, while we've been out adventuring, we found some underwater tropical ruins, so we're going to go down brushing to see if we can get ourselves a sniffer egg down there. I think there might be some drowned we might have to take care of. Oh, hey, here's one right here. So yeah, we'll take care of these guys, and then we'll start brushing up and see what our luck is like today. Alright, I think that's pretty much all of them. It's not too bad. Let's take a look and see what we got in our inventory. Alright, before we move on adventuring, let's see what this brush got us. We got 7 emeralds, a couple pottery sherds, decorated ones of course, a buried treasure map, so that's going to be cool, and a tool and a piece of gold. Not exactly what we're looking for, but there's plenty of ocean out there, and as I've been adventuring, there are a lot of warm oceans, so there's going to be plenty of opportunity to find those sniffer eggs. Alright, we're closing in on the X on this treasure map that I found, and it's just ahead on this land structure. Oh, ooh, wait a minute, what do I see? I see some mangrove trees. It could be a double bonus for us. So while we are getting close to this treasure, we may also be getting close to some mud, which is why we're out here in the first place. We need to find those building materials and get some mud to get started back on the starter area. But yeah, there's a mangrove swamp. Oh, wait, there's a mud block. All right, perfect. Let's collect one right now, and then we will get this treasure and then see how much mud we can collect in our inventory before we head back. We'll have to mark our location as well. Hey, you know what? We could just use this map. That's going to be triple handy. Boy, we really got all kind of fun things going for us. But then it starts raining. Well, I mean, that's okay, though. A little rain's not going to get me down. Let's dig out this treasure and then get some mud. Well, it looks like somebody else may have already been here. Let's see if they left anything behind. They did leave the map. They left the cobblestone. Here's something I haven't done yet that's going to take the opportunity right now to do. I do this thing where I will put the word hi in letters with items here in these buried treasures so that if anybody comes around looking for them, they know that it was me that was here. So we're going to go ahead and write out the word hi in some sand. We'll use the maps as kind of part of the letters. And we'll take these items and throw them away separately. So there it is. Hi, we'll rebury the treasure, as a matter of fact, and then move on with our lives and see if anybody finds this later. But now that we got that covered all up, let's head over and get this darn mud that we've been talking so much about so that we can head back, get out of the rain, and then start building up the base for the starter area. Alright, we're back on land. The sun's out. It's time to dig up all this mud. Well, I've been collecting away here at the mud, and look at who's come pay me a visit. We have a new little buddy over here. It's a little frog. Now, frogs are going to be important in this version because we are going to definitely build a frog light farm. And to do that, you need one of the 3 different frogs. He really does take a liking to me. Maybe we'll have to bring him with us for now. There's another one in the background. But yeah, so the idea behind frogs is you need one of each color. There's a green, an orange, and this white frog, and they're all in different biomes, and you have to bring them into the nether where we could utilize their mechanics to help produce frog lights. So that's something we're definitely going to do. I've marked this location. We're not going to be able to bring this guy with us as much as he seems to want to come with me, and we'll be back here another time to collect him, possibly his buddies, and much more mud, of course, to continue our building. Well, I believe our inventory is full. If we take a look, we have all kind of mud. We even have a whole stack of the muddy mangrove roots to help with the decorations in the theme. But I have a feeling this is barely going to make a dent in the amount of materials we're going to use. So like we said, we're going to start with this. We're going to figure out what type of redstone machine to build. And I think that's what we're going to wind up doing next. It'll just be a temporary setup because until we start building the structure for the starter area, it's going to be difficult to figure out exactly where it's going to land. But let's head back there now, get everything unpacked, and get started laying out some structure. Well, we're back over here in the village again, and that's because right behind me we need wheat. And part of the reason that I had forgot about, and now we're going to have to make sure we have some, is to take the mud to turn them into all the different mud brick building variants. You actually need packed mud, and to get packed mud, you need wheat. We combine them together to get those blocks. So I made a quick stop here. We're going to collect this wheat up. And then we're going to build a fun little temporary redstone contraption back at the starter area to continue to grow some wheat and automatically collect it without villagers. So that's going to be kind of fun. Little detour, like we said, but we need these materials, and we already had them here because of the Island of Purgatory, I'm going to keep calling it. But we'll finish this up, get back there, and start to set up a temporary wheat farm. Alright, we got everything back and unpacked, but let's quick demonstrate what we have to do to make these blocks that we need. In the crafting table, we go ahead and put together the mud and the wheat, and we are going to get the packed mud blocks. So let's just go ahead. I already had about a stack of wheat from the village. We have now a stack of packed mud, and the packed mud can then be turned into mud bricks, and the mud bricks can be turned into different variety of textures, like we see in this walkway over here, heading to spawn. And that's going to be the inspiration for where we get started. As a matter of fact, we're going to start with a very basic path from the place that when I swim from the one side to the other, I keep landing on here and then walking up this terrain. We're going to go ahead and make it a little stairway just to get to our starter area and then see where we are from there. And to get some more wheat, we'll just build back here behind the sign in this flat spot a temporary little redstone contraption that'll help us to harvest the wheat automatically when it grows up, and because we're near spawn and because there's other players over there, it should be growing pretty readily and be able to help us convert all of this mud and more into the mud bricks. And now that I look at it, we're gonna just go ahead and fire up this build in the form of a time lapse right here on the flat spot behind me and just get the general outline. We'll detail it after the end, but let's just go ahead and get this thing laid out now. Alright, pretty good progress if I do say so myself. So before we activate this thing, I still need a little more iron to finish off some of the hoppers at the end, as well as getting enough buckets to put in each one of those dispensers. So we'll do that now that the sun's going down. Real quick, take a nap and come back, finish that off, and then see how we're gonna wrap this thing up. Alright, we pretty much completed this thing, and it's time to give it a little bit of a tester, and unfortunately, I did make a little bit of an error. Alright, I'm back here behind the field with my button, and all you really have to do is put it on the end, and we will activate it, and we're going to have to see this from overhead, I think, at this point, because I'm going to be stuck behind here, but let's not push the button. What am I doing? I haven't even put the buckets in there yet. I'm just getting way ahead of myself, so let's quick get some more iron, get those buckets, fill up the dispensers, and then give this thing a tester. Alright, all the buckets are in place, or at least I think 15 of them, which is about as far as that redstone power is going to go. Let's push the button and get this thing going. Survey says, there it goes, perfect, and as we can see, A little uneven at the end, but that's okay because we can fix that up a little later. It did function exactly how we wanted to, with the exception of it didn't go as far as we needed. Oh, I've kind of did a little bit wrong mathematics here. As big as the field is, which would normally be out to 4 blocks from the end of the water source, that doesn't include the water source block that the dispensers are coming from. So it actually is 1 short. This makes perfect sense. That's okay. That's why we tested out. And just like in Minecraft, you can always make small adjustments and rebuild it so it works the exact way you need. But I certainly should have plenty of materials, at least to get started with, to continue to make my mud and then get ready to build up a little bit of a structure before we wrap up this episode. Alright, we're running a little short on time for this episode, but I do want to introduce one more thing before we're all done today, and that is another new feature in 1.21, the version we're playing in, auto crafting. And we're going to go ahead and utilize the auto crafter. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an auto crafter and then get a little setup over here. Now, normally what we would need is a decent number of redstone components, which again, we don't have access to currently because we can't get into the nether, which means we can't get any raw quartz. But I did figure out a little mechanism to allow it to fire, and what we're going to do is we're going to craft up our packed mud with regular mud blocks and this wheat that's being collected behind us. So I'm going to set it up just over here to the side and show you what it looks like from the outside. We'll figure out how to incorporate it underneath so that it all happens automatically, but we'll get an idea as we wrap this episode out, a little tutorial on how to utilize a very, very basic auto crafter. Alright, I've gathered up all the materials I'm going to need here in this chest. Let's throw them all in my inventory and we'll talk through the things that we have to build in several subcomponents. So the first thing we need is a dropper. And I believe we can get that. Yep, there it is right there. Cobblestone and redstone. No quartz necessary, and we can build ourselves a dropper. Now, as we see, we get a new recipe, and that's the crafter. So this will be the first time we build one. To make one, you need that dropper with a regular crafting table, a little bit of iron, a little bit of redstone. Again, no quartz necessary, so we grab the crafter, and now it's in our inventory. From here, I gotta figure out a way to activate the crafter with a redstone signal that's triggered by something, and without having access to comparators or repeaters, that might sound like a little bit of a challenge, but I have this little setup in mind that involves rails, as we can see in my inventory, and detector rails and power rails. The detector rail is the real key, because when a minecart sweeps over that detector rail, it emits a redstone signal. And that signal is going to make the auto crafter work. So I'm going to get that set up right behind me, and then we'll check in, see how this thing works, and get it fired up with the wheat and mud. Alright, as you can see, we have the very simple rail setup here, and we have 2 powered rails on either end with the switches that will power them, and then send a minecart going back and forth. Now let's give it a minecart in position and explain what happens with the redstone. So with the minecart, it will not move unless the things are powered, and when we power one side, it'll go to the other side, and it won't move unless that side's powered. If they're both powered, they'll go back and forth. Every time it goes over this detector, let's power this thing up, you can see it slow down, and it also emits a signal. By being at least 1 block away with this middle rail, it goes on and off, and that's what we need to activate the crafter, the auto crafter. We need a pulsing signal, and that's what we're going to have here. If we just add a little redstone to the end, you can see that the redstone goes on and off, and if we have the crafter right here on the end, have it facing outward, now it's going to be activating. Well, it'll activate when we have something inside of it. So for the time being, let's stop this guy, and it'll stop from moving. Here is how the crafter works. On the inside, it has a grid, just like a regular crafting table. And you can toggle these individual positions to allow for raw materials to get put in. And when it's powered, it will activate this arrow and make the item that's associated with the recipe. So I already know that I need wheat in one position and mud in another position. So let's grab those items. And load them up into the crafter in the different positions, and as you can see, it'll craft the packed mud. Now, I can't take it out of here directly. It has to be dispensed, or basically shot out of its mouth here in the front. It's an angry looking mouth, isn't it? And it's directional. I have it facing forward, and if we go ahead and put a barrel straight on its mouth, it'll dispense it into the mouth when it's powered. So let's quickly give this thing a fire. We'll get it back and forth once. Is this powered on this side? Yep, still powered. So we're gonna have to go back and forth. And it powered it. You see the little lever go up and down. We should see a block. Oh, we got 2 blocks of packed mud. That's because it went back and forth and activated twice, which is perfect because we want this thing to make short work of the raw materials. As long as we can keep loading them in there, it'll keep making them for us because we're expecting to use a lot of mud like we said in this build. It's getting nighttime. I gotta have to sleep. And then we'll come back and wrap it up. Alright, we're back, and we only need just a couple little basic additions to make this just a little easier. There's obviously a lot more we can do, and we plan on doing to make it all fully automated, but just enough for now to make as much mud as we possibly can. We're going to go ahead and put some 2 raw material loaders onto either side of that crafter, so we'll load the wheat and the mud separately. And to do that, we just take these hoppers and we insert them on either side, so that basically says to the crafter that whatever's coming through these hoppers are going to feed these empty positions. And that means that if we had a barrel on top or a chest, which if I can hop up there, we're going to go ahead and throw a barrel on either one, facing forward so that we can load them. And then all we have to do is we can put the wheat, which I'm already out of wheat, and we can put the mud in this one, which I don't have any in my hands. So let's grab those things, put them in there, and then our automatic packed mud maker is going to be ready to roll. Alright, we've definitely got enough wheat in there for the time being, and plenty of mud, as it's all filtered down into the different hoppers. All we got to really do is just turn this thing on and get it to go back and forth, and here we go. Let's start collecting the packed mud. It's going every second or so. And that'll just continue to run. I can obviously make some more items back here. When we do have quartz-based redstone, we can start to do some detecting and some comparating and some repeating and lay out some good circuitry underneath here to do things a lot more automatically. But for the time being, when we're over here doing building and other activities, we can just flick one of the levers on and off, stop it when it returns to one side, and then be able to prevent our machine from running on overtime, you know what I'm saying. But I think that's going to be about a good spot to wrap it up. We have definitely built up a little bit. We got some redstone, some very basic redstone going. We're going to continue that through this season. What I expect to do in Season 7 is use a lot more redstone that I've never used before and making much more automatic and fully automated contraptions. We're going to continue making larger builds. That dark castle is really going to be something when we get there. But for the next episode, we're going to continue to focus on this ledge and inside the mountain, on the mountainside, hanging over the edge. Maybe there'll be a bridge back to spawn at some point, because the main mission right now is to continue the starter area. But that's about all the time we have for today. I do want to thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.